Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business. It's a beautiful Thursday evening. We getting to where we losing light and it's getting dark. And I come back here to do the show and the lighting's perfect. So I think I look a little perfectly well lit tonight. So hey, just wanna first and foremost get this out of the way. This is important for me to say, and I mean it. I truly, truly appreciate you guys, and I am humbled and so so ingratiated to the people that continue to share their Thursday evenings with me when they can. And I mean, sometimes it's just it's on such a consistent level that I am blown away. So as always, thanks for being here, Danya. Thanks for doing what you do, Bob, Ajane, Celeste, Jay, Lisa. I'll I'll cover that base later. But no, thank you all for being here. I just am I'm so appreciative, and I'm a word I can't think of right now, and I say it all of the time, but I'm grateful. That's the word. I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. So tonight's topic is what circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstances? Now, I'm pretty sure that some of you already have the answer to that question. Uh, Circumstances should influence how we're conducting ourselves, how we're behaving at times. But as you probably have heard me say here before, I try not to give anybody my water. So that's kind of how I mean it. Do you take out things or kind of leave the best self that you know when something happens and you kind of conscious of it, and we can unpack it a little bit as we go through the night. But again, I want to be really clear that I truly appreciate you guys. This is family hour for me, so I'm glad to see you. Glad to spend this time. Lisa, I'm still gonna get on you later on because we got some things to talk about. I'm disappointed, but I like your hair. Look at that. So you say that to a woman, it cleans everything up. Y'all remember that out there? It clean. It changes everything. It changes everything. You look so nice. Look at them earrings. You just look beautiful. You do. You look good. Glad to see you. Glad to see all of you. I appreciate you all. Um, so I mean, we start with just the point blank question. And of course it's a little layered. And I'm going to the guy that generally uh, tears down the layers of my question and makes them something he can process. And yeah, he's smiling. He know where I'm going to. Jay Dwayne, yeah, you already knew I was coming to, man. So what circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstances? Go ahead and tear it down, man. Go ahead and break it up. Go on and mash it. Don't mash it.
It's not necessarily any environment that there's not certain things that I do require other than because when I look at my best self, are we talking well, when we think about my best self, I'm very selfish with that and it's just a reserve that I don't give everybody. I don't think everybody needs to experience who I am organically. So me at my best, meaning me feeling completely vulnerable, free, thriving in what it is that I'm doing, everybody don't deserve that. I think that you need to ration out portions of yourself to an individual. And the way that I look at it, the more rigid, the more stiff necked or even attitudinal that a person may be, it just lets me know that you won't get an opportunity to experience certain portions of me. And I usually just let it go. It takes a lot for me to truly come out of character, but it's nothing for me to censor off certain parts of me that I don't let certain people experience.
Is there something in that inside of that you're guarding against, or is it just the way you kind of conditioned yourself to experience this journey of life?
It could be a combination. I try to examine it. I don't know if it's from my childhood or just my professional experience, because in my professional career, I've either been the only black or the only black man. So it taught me a lot about observation and just learning through observation. But the other part is I just learned over time. I don't know if that's experiences or age or wisdom or whatever you want to call it. I just learned over time that every battle isn't worth me fighting, and the one thing that I have to make sure that I protect is me. And I just don't think that everyone should be able to experience all of me. So if I don't feel comfortable around you or safe to be myself, I just won't give you that luxury.
Biggie, I get that. There's some layers to that answer, so that's a little different from you. I get it though. That's wow. That's a we might have to come back to some of that. I like the answer, Lisa. The inspiration for me choosing this topic, it was on my book to be centered in the space, but you and I had a conversation, and I said, you know what, this is just confirms that this is the topic I'm going with this week. So, what circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstances?
So, similar to what Jay was saying, there are parts of me that I'm not willing to express and expose to everyone. But my best self, I'm always putting forth, and the context of that best self depends on the situation and environment I'm in. So there is a requirement of extra energy to put forth certain aspects of me. So that's why there are people who I don't deem worthy, not as a value of a human being, but worthy to the effect that they won't receive what I would have to offer in the manner in which I would like to give it. Because I always like to offer things with a compassionate, loving heart, even when I am offended, even when I'm hurting, or even when things are good or bad. And even when things are good, you can't always be as expressive because and in this level of maturity and in this development of my own, I'm having to do temperature checks all the time, and especially in larger environments. So there may be three friendlies to 25. I don't know. So am I gonna put my neck on the chopping block for that? No. So part of what Felton alludes to, I was expressing how in my black skin, I was in an environment around a lot of white people who were putting forth their ideas of what they thought were some good ideas. But I was like, that's not a good idea from my perspective. So they didn't have a sentimentality to how a black person would receive what they were putting forth. But what I told Felton was that, no, I'm not teaching them because most of them, probably three-fourths of them, would not even receive it. They're not open to being taught appropriateness or compassion or all these other things. So I was still my best self sitting there and deciding, because that's my best self for my best self now after getting all this healing. About 10 years ago, I'd have just disconnected from these people and be like, I don't like them. I ain't dealing with this because it's some deep stuff. And especially when you're in some environments for the greater good that you have to encounter. But my best self is to go through these checks and balances and take the temperature of the room and see how valuable it would be to them, to me, to the whole conglomerate to do any such thing. But I am authentically Lisa. I mean, just wholeheartedly nowadays. There is power in healing, y'all.
I like it, and I wanted to say I got the two feeling people out of the way, Bob. The two feeling people are off the table right now. So coming to you, man. Now that we got those two out of the way, but no, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you sharing because I kind of have a similar but a different. I'm me, and I bring that to every space and et cetera, et cetera. And I don't guard against or be on the lookout for someone who will potentially disturb my best self, but I'm willing to challenge it and maybe get off my square a little bit when it comes down to it. I think Lisa knows Lisa knows that. But No, I'm being facetious. I truly appreciate you guys, but the feelings off the table. Bob, what you got, man? What circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstances?
Um, a few things. One is um, determining what my best self is, and what is when you ask the question about your best self, what is that? Who is that? Uh, and I think one's best self is a respectful, compassionate, empathetic, authentic person. And but that's my definition, because that's what I think I like to strive to be for me. And I think that we can all be our best selves, however we define that, in any circumstances. I don't think who we are and how we come across is or should be circumstantial in terms of my definition of what best is. In other words, obviously circumstances can impact, and I'm going to say this, and I don't want to get laughed about it, but I'm going to say it, can impact our feelings. And our feelings can impact how we function and how we operate. We can get mad, we can get glad, we can get hurt, we can get all these things, we can pout and all those sorts of things if we let the feelings take over the situation that we find ourselves in. Or we can let our values stay in the forefront and intentionally keep our values at the forefront and operate consistent with our values rather than operate in response to our feelings. To the point of giving of ourselves, I think that's a different question. I think if we don't choose to interact fully with anybody for whatever reason, I don't think that's withholding our best selves. I think that can actually be an exercise of being our best selves, because we're using our judgment to say, not worth it, not going to spend my energy that way. Those kinds of things. And we can choose to exit as opposed to engage. Being our best selves doesn't mean we have to engage. It means sometimes we know not to. Ajay and we talked about this the other day, about there are times when I'm going to leave because I need to maintain myself, and the way I maintain myself is to exit, and that's exercising, I think, one's best self. So I think part of our work in terms of who we are is really coming to terms with our values, informed by our intellect, our study, and our feelings, but then working to intentionally operate based upon those values, regardless of the circumstances, and discern, depending upon the circumstances, how much we engage or how little we engage in the circumstance. And again, a compulsive liar may not be able to not lie. Does that mean it's his best self? Well, we don't like to think that a compulsive liar is being his best self, but he might be. He might be being his best self. We would all probably say, he needs to work on that and try to exercise that from his way. But For me, I think compassion, respect, empathy, and authenticity. And I think best self also, and I'll stop in a second, best self authenticity is probably the most important component of that. Because if you're compassionate, you're authentic. That is part of your authenticity. If you're respectful, that is part of your authenticity. If you're arrogant, that's a layer that might be part of your truth, but it's a layer that masks your authenticity. If you're prejudiced, that's a layer that masks your authenticity. And so I think authenticity is the key, and authenticity is a matter of values, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would even throw in that vulnerability that we all kind of shudder from to a degree. That has to be a piece of the puzzle, I believe, in being authentic as well. Yeah, the liar person, the person that's just can't stop lying. That's a whole psychological breakdown that we can't get to. But yeah, that can definitely problematize being your best self. But no, I'm glad you introduced the idea. Let me read Tango's comment. Tango says health and wellness are pertinent components to being my best self. Exactly, which I'm going to get to that, and as soon as I touch on this with Celeste and Ajane, there are these little things that play a role in that feeling and being best self. And thanks for highlighting those, Tango. But Bob, I wanted to say really quickly, I appreciate you bringing in the subjective understanding of who your best self is. So when you are processing who your best self is, there is no blanket best self. I do appreciate you making sure that that's understood, because yeah, everybody doesn't have the same self-image, self-worth, self-value. Somebody's best self can be one that you think is horrible, and they actually might be doing good that day. So
one quick comment, in addition to your comment about vulnerability, I think that you're exactly right, but I also think that vulnerability comes easier with self-confidence, and self-confidence comes easiest with understanding your values and believing in your values and intentionally working to live them. So therefore, you're much more willing to be vulnerable because you don't feel at risk. You've got confidence about that.
You got a foundation. I totally agree with that. You got a foundation. You're not just floundering and saying, "Woe was me," and don't have anything to back up you getting back to a better place or whatever. But yeah, you got to have some foundation. I'm all about the values and the codes and all that good stuff. Celeste, coming to you. Do I need to reread the question? You got it.
I believe it, but reread it real quick just in case.
What circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstances?
A piece of me believes being your best self is character, and character doesn't change. But I will also say that being your best self comes with circumstance. I was actually just talking to one of my patients today. A good person can do bad things when put in a terrible environment or situation. So me, myself, I try to come into every place being my best self. I understand that sometimes my best self can be problematic because I overlove, overcare, which means I overthink, I overinvest. And that can be bad internally for me. But Jay Dwayne and Lisa can laugh when I say this because they know. You can pull out some of the worst traits in me by certain actions. Certain situations, I will openly admit, I still do not have the maturity to handle. Felton, I see it in your face. No, there are certain things. I can have the best character in the world. I can be as loving, as appreciative, and invest in someone as much as I want. But doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, having the wrong response can definitely make Nuck If You Buck play in the back of my head. And then we're going to have to pay, Crime Mob for me having that thought process and it playing out loud. But no, I definitely believe that your best self is character. You are who you are what you are, and who you are 99% of the time tries to come out and be what you are in the moment. It takes an extreme event to pull out the worst in somebody or something that genuinely triggers. So I believe that genuinely people are their best selves because that's who they are. And unless a circumstance or event changes that, they're going to present their best self.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's just where we're at.
No, you have more? Go ahead. I didn't mean
Oh
to.
no, that was it. Like
Okay.
that's where we're at.
No, I love that you introduced the word character, and I think that leans itself back into the understanding of your values, your positions on your outlook on life. That whole thing, that notion of having a code, uh, the philosophical things that I like to adhere to, all of that stuff is should compose your character in some way, shape, or form. And for that 1% that you said at 99%, at 1%, I'm a big advocate for believing that it's never too late to be who you thought you were. We're all a work in progress. So if you have lofty ideals about the person you want to be in the world, then you can complete that task if you so choose.
One thing to add to that, I'm going through the first major shift of my life. Like the first time where I can look back at my immaturities in life and go, wow, I really thought I knew something and I was dumb. This is the first, you know what, don't even do that. Don't even do that. But this is the first time where I met an 18-year-old and she's sitting there talking about all this stuff that she's doing, all this stuff that she knows. And it's the first time I've talked to an 18-year-old probably since I was 18. And as she's talking, I sit there and look at her and I'm like, wow, I was so stupid. I really thought I was smart. Like I was really dumb about 10 years ago. I genuinely thought I was so intelligent. I ain't know nothing. We were sitting there trying to tell her how she was going to make mistakes. She had an answer for everything that we tried to tell her that she probably needed to rethink. But as I'm going through this first major life shift, I am realizing that 1%, yes, character, circumstances, all that, but you're going to grow and change every 5 years. Every 5 years, you're going to look back and there's going to be 7. Is that scientific or is that from life experience?
That's what my grandma told me.
Oh, okay, I can agree. But
no, that's actually a psychological state. They talk about that.
Oh,
it's 7 years.
Okay, I was doing like 25, 30, but but I'm going to say, yeah, you change. Like you always have the propensity and the potential to be better, because who I am now is not who I'm going to be when I'm 30. Who I am at 30 will not be who I am at 40. So there's always a potential to be better, do better, and that 99% can genuinely be a better person as you evolve, as you grow, and as you experience life and the things that come with it.
I love that, and I've watched you over the last couple of years that I've known you. I so appreciate sharing a bit of somebody's ride as they ascend and progress. So I'm grateful for that as well, Celeste. And yeah, whatever that means. My finger's kind of crooked, so it don't work right. But anyway, I want to I want to also throw in there that there's a constant progression to your life, whether you choose to participate in it or not, because next day is coming. Most of the time, when you find yourself and you become who it is that you truly hope to be in this place, in this world, the only thing that disrupts that as you progress, the only thing that disrupts your total ascent to even better places is sometimes the circumstance of life that really throws you the curveball that breaks you down, or if you become, addicted to substances or something that changes the dynamic that you hope to maintain as you progress through life. But most of the time, if you're a decent person and you adhere to that, you can maintain that trajectory to becoming the most decent person you can in your lifetime if circumstances doesn't dictate too much of that in a negative way. Ajane, I think we settled on 7 years. Jay Dwayne, I think Ajane will back us up. And I hope she will. I want to be right about that, because that's what my grandma said. What circumstances do you require to be your best self, or can you be your best self under any circumstance?
So I'll preface by saying that Black grandmas have some real wisdom that I won't step on the toes of. And I know that yours was a really wonderful woman, probably like all of the rest of ours. They were just, beautiful and well-rounded and maybe a little crazy, because I know both of mine. Yeah. So I'll say I won't step in on that, but I will add something. And then I'll tie this in with the question. I think that God laughs when we make plans for ourselves. So we can say every 7 years or what have you, but y'all know my disclaimer is that I do believe in a divine power, and I do believe that there are times where new seasons are initiated in your life without you initiating them. And I do think that for myself, and I'll speak for myself as I transition into answering the question, for me, being my best self requires me to be my best self in every circumstance. And I agree with so many of the layers that people before me have added. And I'll sort of touch on a couple of points. So being my best self means loving myself and loving others and loving God enough to sincerely humble myself and not always do what I want to do in circumstances. Because there's a part of me that's much higher than this fleshly experience. And that is my ultimate best self, in an eternal form and in a universal form. And so looking at it from that perspective, for me, vulnerability means that sometimes in order to be my best self in any circumstance means that I have to tear down what flesh is saying and humble myself and maybe go through some suffering that I don't want to go through, and remove some pride and remove some headiness and some high-mindedness and say, this is what I want to do, but this isn't what God would have me to do. And so, for myself, I'm always very conscientious about that, because I believe that at the core of love and being my best self, that balance is key for me. Balancing vulnerability with strength, balancing what I can control versus what I cannot control, and learning how to walk that path, and learning what to do when there are things I can't control, and learning how to master the things that I can, and also respecting the fact that, again, I can't always respond the way that I want to respond. Sometimes I'm going to have to do what's strong to God instead of what's strong in the world. And sometimes humbleness comes off as weakness. Sometimes loving and openness comes off as being gullible or what have you. But I find for myself, being my best self has to be rooted and grounded in who God says my best self is. And that's a shared relationship. It's give and take. And I find that as I give up the things that I want for the things that are written for me that I cannot see for myself, then I always stay on the pathway to becoming my best self. And when I'm in situations where I'm being hurt, I'm being offended, I'm under attack spiritually, I find that taking a step back and always looking at me in a situation causes me to be my best self. I think a part of my vulnerability is always being open and honest about what I could have done better in any situation, no matter what that person did to me. Because being my best self in any circumstance means that all circumstances came to grow me up and not to kill me and to destroy me and not to break me, but to cause me to walk into that divine version of my best self. And so my best self requires love, It requires vulnerability. It requires balance. It requires strength, but strength in the spirit. The flesh won't let you do some of that stuff. And then it requires humbleness of mind, and it requires meekness. Because Felton, you know, we've been in some situations where, I had to take some things, and I'm like, no, I can't look at it like that. I gotta see me. So, again, my last point is that being my best self always requires me to look at the fact that situations don't change until I do, because I'm not put in situations to always change others. I'm put in situations to change the things about me that need to grow up. There are things, and I'll say that being my best self also requires me knowing what things about myself are me and what things need to change, and not compromising those things. And so, yeah, for me, I think in order to be my best self holistically, I have to be my best self in every situation, especially the situations where I'm tired, especially the situations where I'm hurt, especially the situations where I want to throw the towel in.
Great response. Yeah, there's a couple of things that came to mind. One of them was church. That's what, we used to say when we'd be out hanging out. We'd be like, church. Somebody say a profound thing. Church. There you go. So Tango just said church, but she said beautiful words. So church. Besides that, mindfulness. There's a book, and actually, Tango, you recommended it to me. So you listening. There's a book I'm reading of the 3 or 4 I'm looking at the same time. But mindfulness is referenced in that book a lot, in terms of understanding how relationships and communication should work amongst the individuals. But I think, Ajane, you're having a conversation within yourself about who is your best self. And that's a conversation, and inside of that conversation, you have to be mindful. And everything you just stated really was mindful of you being your best self, even when you don't want to. Which brings me to the lightning round, because I was like, if I get a lot of people, I got a couple of quick questions. So these 2 questions I'm about to ask, I'll ask them at the same time. But I want it to be don't go super fast, because I got one bigger question I still want to get to. But we always get to running up against time, and I don't want us to run out. But I do want to make sure that Jay Dwayne acknowledges my grandmother's ideas around the 7-year theory, Ajane, Levinson theory. I don't know. Read that, Jay Dwayne. Who is that? Levinson?
Levinson's theory. Yeah, we learned about it in
Levinson.
psychology. That's why I was like, I remember the theory. I just couldn't remember the name of it. But it talks about the overlapping of the 5 and 7 years. And what he's talking about is how we go through these weird growth periods of like reflection and transition. It's kind of like we do these in 7-year increments that typically happen. And when Ajane said it, I said, I remember something divine about it. And I just remember the 7-year thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Again.
It was definitely divine, because that was my grandmother was going to reference the Bible in some way, shape, or form. So it had something to do with 7 years in some way, shape, or form. The number 7 was relevant. But I appreciate you throwing it in the chat. Quickly around the space, how important is a good night's sleep to being your best self? And is hangry a real thing? Lisa.
Oh man, that's a softball for real. First of all, yes, hangry is a real thing. I find myself there often, but then I have to dial back and say, "Oh, go eat a piece of grapefruit or something, girl." And then I get adjusted like really quickly. Or a banana. I see you shaking your head, Jay Dwayne. And I do become way more rational. Got to check the science behind that. And
Blood sugar.
oh, that's what it is. But what was the first part of the question? I just got so excited and hangry.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Is hangry a real thing? But how important is a good night's rest? That was
Oh
already.
man, you cannot function without a good night's rest. And like literally, as you're getting older, as I'm getting older, I'm valuing it even more because I can tell the difference. Some of you have seen me when I've been in a space where I literally had a hard time walking without an assisted device. But if I go to bed and actually get 7 hours of sleep, and even that old lady going to use the bathroom in the middle of the night still gets 7 hours of good sleep, I wake up pain free. I mean, this is a miracle worker. And more of us have to tout this going to sleep and letting this. And I know some of y'all like, wait a minute, all of us been touting this for a while. You're the only one that didn't pick it up. But anyway, I've picked up on it now. That's why my phone has a hard do not disturb. Even my 5 children who are now all grown are still, some of them are fussing and cussing that they cannot break through my do not disturb. It shuts the phone down at 9:45 and it does not turn back on until 8:30 in the morning. So everybody can miss me. Life still gonna go on. So thank you for the softball question. That was a
Absolutely,
little
it's
hard.
softball. So keep it rolling. Somebody else hit a home run with these softball questions, because yeah, I totally agree. You used to fight sleep when you were a kid. Now you can't wait to go to bed sometimes. Ajane, uh, how important is a good night's rest, and is hangry a real thing?
What is sleep? I think that's a question for me. Oh my God. Like when you said it, I was like, wow, what is sleep? What is sleep? Okay. So y'all know I've been in school for over a
Keep
decade
in mind, it's
straight.
the lightning round. I want to get to
It
this
is.
other big question.
So let me say that. I've been in school. Um, I think it's a balance. I think that right now I'm in a season where I've had to learn how to work um in the spirit and not in the flesh. And so it's almost like there are moments where I have to fast from things that the body wants to do so that I can discipline the mind and get things done. And then there are times where I'm like, okay, it's time to take care of this body that God gave me and rest. And so for me, it's kind of a balance. I don't know if hangry is a real thing. And here's the only reason why I say that, because there are situations where you're in a fast and you're your best, you're performing the best way that you can, and that's not contrary to people with medical, etc. But again, I think both of them are balanced. I think you have to master learning how to work with and appreciate them, and then learning how to work without, so that you can master being in the spirit for some things and being disciplined.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Bob, how important is a good night rest, and is hangry a real thing?
I think to the core question of best self, I think we all need to understand what aspects of our life enable us to live that. And so if we need sleep, if we can do without sleep, and I think it changes with our age and all that sort of thing. What I think we have to be our best selves, we have a responsibility to be aware of what contributes to that and what takes away from that, and do the things that are necessary for nutrition, not overeating, getting good rest, and all of that sort of thing. Our lives get in the way of that, and again, it goes back though to who's responsible for our lives, God and ourselves, or the rest of the world. And our part of our task to be our best selves is to, if we believe in God and that, it's to be, okay, God first, us second, the world next, not the other way around. And so I think hangry can certainly be a real thing. Lack of sleep can certainly, but we have to understand those things for ourselves, about ourselves, and take responsibility and ownership of it.
All right. Celeste, hangry a real thing, and what's the good night's rest?
I heard the first question and then that hangry piece. Baby, being angry is not the real part of hangry, but you talking about my whole personality change, and you got about 30 minutes to get me some food before I go through an emotional shift. I'm not gonna say hangry is the necessary. Angry isn't gonna be the necessary emotion, but will I go through several mood swings if I'm not fed in time? Absolutely. And I just want to state, if you let me get too hungry, fast food's not going to solve your problem. I'm going to need a sit down restaurant. It might not need to be like, Ruth Chris or Fleming's, but it might need to be the Olive Garden. I might need unlimited breadsticks, salad, and my seafood Alfredo all in one. I don't play about my meals, okay? I'm 200 pounds. I eat, and I'm 5'7", okay?
You can
I'm
still
built
sit
for
down at
comfort.
McDonald's and Burger King, Wendy's, and Arby's. You can still sit down at those places. Anyway,
No,
come on.
but no, like I said, I'm 200 pounds at 5'7". I'm built for comfort, not for speed. I need to sit down and eat. I need my food. Now when it comes to the sleep part, sleep is something that you have to learn is essential, especially if you are ambitious, especially if you have goals that you feel you need to sacrifice for. Again, I think Lisa Felton, Jay Dwayne know. I went to law school, that sleep cycle got messed up. The mental health piece of it got messed up. The stress part of it got messed up. Felt to see me lose, essentially sleepwalk in Printworks. And, I'm never going to live that down. And my dad made me go to a doctor after me sleeping on the couch turned into what he thought was a seizure. And it wasn't. It was essentially just me being so exhausted that my body shut down and stopped functioning for me to go to sleep. Sleep is essential. Sleep is necessary. Get sleep. I don't want to say that your goals and dreams can wait, but imagine having to take a year off of law school because you sacrificed so much due to stress and sleep that it now makes you alter your plans. Like sleep is one of those things you cannot compromise on. You cannot compromise on an assignment. You cannot compromise on a goal, but you can compromise on the path that you take to get to accomplishing it. Ajane, when she said, "What is sleep?" I was like, yeah, I've been there. I now realize that, like I went, it's funny, I got my physical today and my doctor was like, Celeste, you have to manage your stress because if you don't manage your stress, you could die. And I was just like, okay, now, Aaron, calm down. Now he knows when I use his first name, I'm looking at him sideways, but sleep is essential. Sleep is what you need. Sleep is how you find peace. When I can't, now that I'm, back on the right track of life and I now understand the vitality and importance of sleep, if I can't sleep, it's usually because I relaxed so much that I went to sleep too early. It's because I'm rested and now my mind can wander, but it can wander in a place of tranquility and peace. I mean, Ajane talks about faith. I woke up Monday night and couldn't sleep, and I talked to God for 15 minutes. I walked around the room and prayed because God, when I no longer know what to think with my mind, please listen to the intentions of my heart. Listen to the desires that I have. And that's where I was. Now that I understand the essential and important ability of sleep, I don't even know, essential and important ability. I don't know if that necessarily goes together, but I think you know what I mean. But now that I understand, how essential sleep is more than just rest. It's how your body resets. It's how you find yourself. So by all means, please get sleep. I learned my lesson the hard way.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I did not cut you off because, I know I can count on Jay to follow instructions, the rest of y'all. But Celeste, I do appreciate you highlighting that personal moment and the high level indicator of how important rest is and what happens when you overlook it.
Ajane, get your sleep. As soon as you said what is sleep, I was like, Ajane, get your sleep.
No, remember I said balance. I'm learning how to master both situations. When I'm exhausted, still give my best self, and when I'm feeling like run down,
lightning round, guys. Lightning round.
Don't do it, Shelton.
I gotta keep my head
shutting you down on your show.
I'm trying to make sure the time goes accordingly. So Jay has yet to tell us is hangry a real thing and how important sleep is. Watch this. Go ahead, Jay.
I think rest is more important than sleep. And I think we confuse the two sometimes, but I think having a good rest and having restful moments are essential. And I don't think that hangry is a real thing. I think is an excuse a lot of times for poor behavior, and it's just a quick scapegoat.
Wow. I mean, how long did
Whatever,
that take?
whatever.
Wait a minute, what you? I'm joking.
Hey, look, thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. And listen, this is the bigger question that I wanted to make sure I got around the space. So just try to be, a little succinct because we're
You
gonna be
didn't ask
respectful.
Bob. You didn't let Bob.
I didn't let Bob what?
He didn't answer the hangry and the sleep question.
Yes, he did. You completely missed that.
I did. You were sleeping.
Yeah, you were hangry and sleeping. Get her, Bob. Get her. You were hangry and sleeping. Get you went up and got a snack, didn't you? Tell the truth. Anyway,
Y'all men moved way too fast.
nah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
listen. This is one I wanted to get around, and again, this was a part of the conversation that made me go ahead and solidify this as this week's topic because it was with Lisa. So, Lisa, I'm gonna start with you. Don't rush, but try to be a little succinct. And how do you deal with personal disappointment, and how does it test your best self? Because I think that's what we were kind of talking about. So how do you deal with when you're personally disappointed, most likely with somebody else outside of yourself? And how do you deal with it, and how does it test your best self?
Well, thank you for clarifying that quickly because I don't generally get personally disappointed in myself because I know I always give 110% or else I'm not doing it. Um, but the way I deal with personal disappointment in others, I'm not all the way healed and I won't be until I die. But most people I'll reject next them. But I you know I'm learning to compartmentalize certain things because I do still have trust issues, and especially in this sphere. Um, I'm giving 110%, and I'm out here, and I'm willing to sacrifice, my mind, my body, my resources, and there are a lot of people that's trying to hitch their wagon to what they see as a star. Okay, I'm not doing stuff for to shine like that. I'm gonna do 110%. So if I get personally disappointed in some people, in a person, I first go to my circle of influence. I have a kitchen cabinet, and thank you, Felton, for being in that kitchen cabinet. And I try to have a more logic mindset, but then I address it with some other people who I trust. Like I can't go spewing some info with everybody. And then after I get their feedback, I still make the decision. And sometimes I'll just table them, I'll table it until I have the energy, because it does take a modicum of energy to decide where someone should fit in your life. And especially when you come from traumas and dramas and having to learn boundaries, having to learn emotional intelligence. Because when someone disappoints you personally, then there is a wound. Okay, it might not be as deep as if you boot up with them, but there's still a wound. You still put something in their hands. So again, I won't be fully healed until I die, but that's why I put a little bit of trust in those who I value their opinion and they are logical, as well as I put some people emotional. Felton's about 90% logic. But I'll go to the 90% logic and then move down from there. And then I'll make some more reasonable decisions. But sometimes I just can't because it will take too much. But I've never been one to pop off on people. Like I've never been that kind of person, unless they were a husband. Now that's a little different. They just go get it. I ain't tempering nothing. But I'm glad that I'm not doing the reject next as quickly as I used to be. And I have some trusted people in my circle of influence that I will run scenarios by. So
I value you just as well, Lisa, and I thank you. That's wonderfully said, and speaks directly to the question. So, Ajane, coming to you next. How do you deal with personal disappointment? Of course, I mean in the exchange with another individual. Let's get that clear. I don't mean inside, but personal disappointment, and how does it test your best self?
For myself, the first thing that it tests in me being my best self is my self-reflection. If I'm disappointed, am I projecting? Am I being understanding of the fact that people can only give you things that they have? And sometimes we are out here, and I can speak solely for myself. Sometimes you want people to give you what you think they have. Or sometimes you want people, to be what you want them to be instead of, meeting them where they are. And so I think that taking people at face value and also having faith that the human experience is about growing is where it tests my best self. Because Felton, you are always talking trash, like in every single outlet that you can talk trash. And I'm sorry, I just seen your comment. Anyway, it tests my best self by seeing whether or not I am loving myself enough to balance my needs, to balance communication, emotion, and having faith that this person can grow or come into the realization that this is just who they are and I want them to be someone they're not. So those are some of the first things that it tests for me.
Great response. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Maya Angelou said that. But yes, the chat is just going crazy here tonight, guys. So yeah, I had to say something over there. That's what Ajane was picking on me for. Stop picking on me, Ajane. Celeste, coming to you next. How do you deal with personal disappointment, and how does it test your best self?
I'll say I experienced my first personal disappointment in law school. So the way that I dealt with it was pure confusion. And honestly, thinking about how I was going to come back and accomplish what I disappointed myself in. What is it? I know this is going to sound like really crazy, but TD Jakes says
So you're making it about yourself, which is fine. But understand, yeah. I was thinking when somebody else disappointed you, but I got you. That's fine.
Yeah, honestly, when people disappoint me, I don't care. Because honestly, I didn't invest that much in you anyway. If I can let it go with my mother and father, then I obviously can let it go with anybody, because them people raised me for 18 years. But when it comes to disappointment, I was sad, but I thought about how I was going to get it back. TD Jakes says, you don't learn who you are when life is good and life is dandy. You learn who you are when you go through a storm. The first storm of my life was not getting what I wanted my first year of law school and having to rethink how I'm going to go back and do better the second time, so that way I can achieve what I came to achieve. What I learned from my first big disappointment in life is you don't win every fight, but you can come back and win the war. So yeah, I got knocked flat on my behind. Yes, my feelings was hurt. Yes, my ego was bruised. I definitely drank a bottle of wine that day when it was hurt real, real bad. Yes, y'all, I said the bottle. But now we're back. We're learning. We're doing better. We're achieving. And I know the things now that I didn't know that caused me to have that failure and to have that loss of success. So I think now how I'm going to deal with disappointment is I'm going to come back. A relationship fail, I'm going to have to let that man go. And then after I grieve, move on, cry a little bit, go through the call with your homegirls. Got to call Auntie Lisa, because Auntie Lisa going to tell me to get over it, put on my big girl pants and move on. And that's just what you got to do. I feel like the best way to get over disappointment, cry, grieve, bereave, and you got to come back. You can't dwell in your wallows of sadness forever.
Celeste, you can call me also. I'll give you the best advice.
Phil, it ain't nobody calling you, Phil, because you hurt people's feelings.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, because you know good and well you'll just start talking junk, and then the person will be more hurt. But
Oh man! And I opened this show with all this love and adoration for you guys, and all I've got is that I talk junk. I'm just second guessing all.
Because we love you. We love you. You just mean.
Thank you. Sometimes you just need to hear it. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. I'm waiting, but I don't see nothing else. Bob, coming to you next, man. How do you deal with personal disappointment, and how does it test your best self?
So fortunately, I've had a good bit of time to think about that question as everybody else has answered. And I realized that two things. Number one, nobody else can disappoint me because nobody else is obliged to meet my expectations or requirements or stand. I mean, it's not anyone else's job to satisfy me. It's everybody else's job to live and be the person that they believe that they want to be, and so forth. The one exception is betrayal of trust. And betrayal of trust is a different thing, because betrayal of trust is about an expectation of and an obligation to me. If I trust someone, if someone makes me believe I can trust them, they are obligated to maintain that trust. Anything else, no. They're their own agent for whatever else they do. But to the extent that they convey to me a certain thing in which there's trust, and they betray that trust, that's different. And so that does create disappointment. And the only way I can respond to that is to recognize and learn from it.
That's a lesson.
That's the only response that I think has any worth. Is I can be pissed off, I can be this, I can be that, but the only constructive thing to do is go, now I know.
I agree with that. And I do like the idea of really not projecting some of that disappointment onto someone else, and accepting that you kind of set yourself up for it if you don't pay attention, if you're not observant. Jay, coming to you lastly. Again, I do appreciate you all. Jay, I'm gonna give you the last word, but how do you deal with personal disappointment, and how does it test your best self?
I think as always, being a reflective person, there's always educational moments that you necessarily were not looking for. And unfortunately, sometimes disappointment happens. I agree with Bob. Sometimes when we value a person so much, we do have unspoken expectations of that